So Seth, let's talk about pressure and competition. Because in these last few months, I've had this conversation with corporations who I work with. There is this statement going round, which is we have to focus on making competition irrelevant. And it got me thinking, is this really something that they should be focusing on? Because don't we need competition?
Well, within the competitive area that I work with, with athletes and coaches, competition is something that if we don't look at, we actually create more pressure. That's been our experience. And so I think that you need to look directly at it and you need to see it for what it is. Now, we want to make competition something that's healthy. So we have a healthy relationship with competition, right? And so in nature, you have competition, you have survival of the fittest, you have animals, plants, I live in the desert, so I see these plants that are competing every day for, limited resources of water. So I don't think that humans are any different. And then also we want to be inspired. And so the inspiration that comes from, just what do I care about? I want to win the trophy, right? And so I think that it's a healthy, vision to have that we want the trophy. And it's just, how do we get there? That's the journey we go through. And, it's kind of an interesting, juxtaposition where to get the end result, we focus on something that's the immediate. So it's the little steps that we take to get there.
So I like the analogy between plants and humans, and because everybody's kind of like, whether it's in nature, whether it's humans, whether it's plants, whether it's animals, everybody's in this competition mode, whether we want it or not. So, going back to that statement that, making competition irrelevant is not really relevant to focus on that. Is that what we are saying? Instead, we should be focusing on how to thrive under pressure, and how to when you're in that competition mode, and when you are in a pressured situation, you have to learn the skills how to handle it and how to thrive in that. We should be focusing on that, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think that, it's important to be able to know where to put the focus. Okay. So we have things that are important, and then we have things that we can control. Okay. So that's what I would do with athletes. That's what I would do with teams and beyond, is to be able to say, okay, well, we don't have control over our competition, right? And so is that necessary to focus on? Now, strategically, possibly. But if it's going to be something that's going to play on us, and it's going to add more pressure, and it's going to create internal, what I call stories, which take you out of being present, being in the moment, that's the chatter that goes on in our mind, that critical, voice that we hear in our head. We try to move beyond that, and we try to stay in strategy rather than story. Okay. And so when we're looking at our competition, we get more into their story than ours, right? And so that's something that I make sure that we're not doing. And then we focus on our controllables. What are our controllables? What can we control, and what does matter? So for an athlete, let's say, and this could be helpful with communication, that I would say probably the number one is your breath, right? So there's always power in simplicity. So usually it's the most simple that's the most powerful. And so for an athlete, it's going to be focusing on your breathing. And so they'll be in a pressure situation. It's the most important moment. It's the game-winning, shot. And I'll say, okay, focus on your breath. Are you breathing right now? So that would be one area. And then the next area, I always like to keep things simple. So no more than 3 things. So, because once we get out there on the battlefield, it's easy to get scattered and forget, okay, what are the most important things for me to focus on? What can I control? So I try to limit it to 3 things. So first is breath. The second is posture. So the second is posture. So your posture is related to your nervous system, right? And so when an animal feels like it's being attacked, what is it going to do? It's going to protect its internal organs. Yeah, it's going to start to, you know, and so when someone's been hurt, their feelings have been hurt, what do? Usually their shoulders are slouched. Yeah, exactly. So it's telling your nervous system something's not right. We're in danger. And so then our vitals start to go up. Our heart rate starts to go up. We start to worry. We start to get more and more into that sort of, you know, fight, flight, freeze, the panic mode. So what we want to do, it's so simple, but again, it's just like the breath. You want to get your shoulders down and you want to get your shoulders back, because when someone walks into the room with their shoulders back and their chest out, they grab your attention. So the basic part of that is, oh, that's an animal over there that doesn't feel threatened, right? That to me is leadership. That's something that's inspiring, because their body language, they are communicating to the outside world that I'm okay, go ahead, you know? And when an animal's in attack mode, their wings are spread out really wide so that they can attack, and go on the attack. So that's something that's really helpful, is to be able to speak to that and be able to be that.
Yeah, so
Now,
that's the second thing. And also I have to say this, because we've talked about this, because in our coaching, these two things overlap. So when we work with athletes and when we work with corporations, it's exactly the same thing. You know, control your controllables. What do you focus on? Let's say an executive or CEO is in the middle of like going to present, for example, their mission, or they have a big announcement. And of course, that's kind of, you feel nervous, maybe even anxious. So what can you control? You can't control the audience. You don't know the reaction for sure. But that's when you focus on breathing. Exactly like you said, you focus on your posture. When you enter the space, when you enter the stage or the room, you know, you want to take up as much space as you can, because that's confidence. And it tells your brain, when you do that, when you breathe properly and when you take a really good posture, that tells you that you're confident. You know, that, you know, you feel confidence, and you also look confident. And there could be millions of things that you're thinking inside of your head, but you know, that kind of, you know, it gives you that kind of boost when you breathe and then you take that proper posture. So now the third one. What is the third one?
Well, this one comes right into your area of expertise, which is your self-talk, right? So we can't control the things around us, but we can control how we talk to ourselves, right? And so I follow this because it's critical for performance, which, you know, I found that what you say to yourself is 10 times more powerful than anyone on the planet, right? So within your world, your world's greatest expert 10 times over. Okay, so if you yield that much power within your own worlds, you can imagine what, you know, how effective that can be, both for you and against you, depending how you're communicating. Okay, and so I get people to really start to realize, okay, even if I was surrounded by all of the greatest heroes in my sport, you know, or, you know, the greatest scientists, the greatest professors, the greatest writers, at the end of the day, I would hear what they're saying, but I would go, oh, okay, well, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it today, right? And who ends that? Who gets to win that argument? It's always you. You always get the final say. So that's really critical. And then the other part about it is that, again, another 10x factor is that, and what you say out loud is 10 times more powerful than, you know, something that you think. So you can imagine you start to take control of your self-talk, not only how you're talking to yourself, but how you're saying things out loud, you know, so you're speaking it, you know, and being it. That's just a very, very powerful thing when you put those two together. So yeah, we have our breath, we have our posture, and how are we talking to ourselves?
And also I like the, when you talk about, you know, when you make it verbal, you verbalize your inner thoughts and you speak it out. That's also something that when I train executives in communication skills, I always say, don't just think it, write it, and then speak it. Because, when you write it down, for example, you are preparing a speech or a presentation, when you write it down, that does something to your memory. You memorize things better. So if you're worried about, blackouts and, what's coming next, I don't know what to say next, write it down, just in your own words, write it down. And then the final step is to speak it out loud. You can't practice performing, and you can't practice communications without communicating, without actually talking, speaking, press the record button and speak it. And that's how you learn, because that's also, then you realize, what are my key points? When you listen to yourself, you're like, okay, so actually that's my key point, not the one that I thought it was. So speaking it out loud also helps you to clarify your points and what is the core message that I'm trying to say here. And when you listen to yourself, and if it's not coming out clearly, then you need to go back, write it again, speak it out loud. So that's very similar again, your approach and my approach, and how we, from athletic mindsets and to corporate environments, these all, they go together so well.
Yeah. And it gets us back to being able to, look directly at, like I like to say, we're going to look at competition, and we're going to look at pressure. We're going to look it straight in the eye. We're going to deal with it because it's going to be in the room. Right. And if you're going to back into it, then, okay, then we have to dig a hole so that we don't deal with pressure. And then we get that sort of relief, like, oh, okay, well, it can't get any worse than this. And then we get to dig ourselves out of that hole. Right. That's backing into the competition. That's backing into pressure, is having to make mistakes in order for us to calm down, to deal with something we could have dealt with right from the very beginning. So that's why I say, let's go straight at pressure. Let's go straight at competition and look it directly in the eye, see it for what it is, and have a healthy relationship with it.
And one statement that I think it's very necessary here to say is pressure is privilege.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, we do all these sacrifices, to get to the competition. And then all of a sudden, if we turn around and pretend that it doesn't exist, then, we're not seeing this opportunity that we created in the first place. We've trained, we've gone through all these sacrifices. We're eating just right. We're sleeping just right. We're training. We're doing all of these, developments to get to this point of the competition. It's a privilege, right? It's a privilege to feel this. And the irony is that it feels uncomfortable, and that's it. So I have these world champions, these Olympians that are contacting me saying right before their competition, I just threw up, I just threw up. And I'll say, good, because that means you care. You have to care. If you don't care, you're not there. You're not present. And so we move through the discomfort, and then they start to be able to make that transition into, oh, okay, I feel really uncomfortable. I might have thrown up, but that's a good sign. Like that means that I care, that I'm actually, I have something on the line. And that's invigorating. That's something that actually feels like something. If I don't feel that, then that's when I get concerned, right? That's when I start to say, oh, do we really care about this in the first place?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same with, any communication situation that you might have, whether it's presenting or, getting on the stage. It's your nerves. It's that kind of, you might even suffer from stage fright. And that's exactly how you then feel. My clients say to me like, okay, so I feel like throwing up before I go there. And I say, that's good, because it shows us you care. If you didn't care, then, why do you even bother? I mean, if you don't care about your job and you don't care about the end result, then why are you there? And world famous actors and musicians say the same. I remember Beyonce saying that she feels sick to her stomach every time she goes on stage. She gets really bad stage fright. But then, and Bruce Springsteen as well has said the same thing. He gets really nervous. But if he doesn't get it, he thinks that something is wrong. You know, I
Yep.
need to get my energy up and I need to care more. You know, there's something weird happening here.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Yeah.
of like a warning signal to you as well. And you don't feel that excitement or those nerves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to the beginning of the competition.
Mm.
You know, the competition draws that out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That feeling like there's something on the line, that my life matters, this a sense of urgency. You know, if you don't feel that sense of urgency, then I think that's an emergency, right? Like we have to find out what the heck what do you care about, right? Are you trying to trick, you know, I'll work with world champions and, you know, I've gone through this where they'll say, oh, well, you know, I kind of shut down and all, you know, and I'll say, well, why did you shut down? You know, like if you don't care about it, then you're trying to trick yourself into believing that you don't care about it just so that you can start to calm down. And I'll say, but you're lying to yourself. That has to feel like a rot, you know, like that's a rot. I know that feeling. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to care about that goal anymore, right? I don't care about it. But that feels rotten inside. That doesn't feel good, you know. You're not avoiding anything. It's still there. And then they'll go, oh gosh, I hate it when you say that, but yes, you're right. You're right. I have to care. And then you get back out there and you go and it's invigorating. And then you know, discover like, okay, I really do have to be uncomfortable. I really do. And then, you know, again, it goes back to courage. How do we get courage? We go directly into the fear, you know. It all feeds into the same thing, but the competition is necessary. It's completely necessary.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.